Hey everyone, Chris Henry. Welcome to Audio Punch. And no matter how good your content is, you'll have a hard time getting listeners to give your stuff an honest shot if the simple act of listening to it is a chore. And while there are endless software tricks available to improve and polish your sound, no amount of post-production is going to make bad audio sound good. So let's talk about what I mean by good sound. A good sound for your podcast, YouTube channel, stream, whatever, is going to be clean. It's going to be full frequency, capturing the whole frequency spectrum of your voice with little or ideally no background noise, and it'll play at a comfortable and predictable listening volume throughout the duration, right? So that when people tune into your stream or your podcast or your YouTube channel, it's not going to be 10 times louder or 10 times quieter than everything else they're used to hearing. First, let's talk about the main thing, the core of getting good sound for your content, and that's recording cleanly. So there are probably three major areas you should focus on when it comes to your recording environment, and they're all related to the noise that gets into your recording while you're working. The first one is noise from fans, right? Your refrigerator, your computer, your air conditioner, your heater. All of those things are going to create hum or hiss that will get picked up by your microphone. And then when you do all of the post-producing that you need to do in order to bring your stuff up to program level, it's going to make that sound 10 times worse. So the cleaner you can record, the better it'll sound at the end when you do those tricks that'll bring it up, right? So, how do you deal with that, right? Shut off any fans that you can shut off. Turn off your AC if you won't roast by doing it. Turn off the heater if you won't freeze. Unplug the refrigerator. Put your phone or your keys in it so you don't forget to plug it back in when you're done. But that, I mean, especially in smaller houses and apartments and offices, the refrigerator is responsible for a huge portion of the background noise. Now, there are other background noises that you can't really do anything about. Planes going overhead, traffic outside, close the windows if you can. Record towards the center of the building if you can. That stuff will get quieter. It's all about either turning off the sources of noise or getting the microphone as far away from them as possible. So, even if it's a little hot, even if it's a little cold, turning off your climate control is a small price to pay, I think, for cleaner audio. You'll like the process of dealing with it a lot more later. The second thing that isn't really about noise, but it's still about clean recording, is the sound of the room you're in. If you're new to recording, this might not occur to you, but a lot of the difference between, say, why a radio show or a pro YouTube show sounds so good is that they're recording in an environment where sound doesn't bounce around everywhere. It's a controlled sonic environment. The way you can get that at home is, at its most simplest, go record in a closet or record in your bedroom that has, lots of soft, fluffy things on the ground and on the walls, right? Or if you are really into this, you can hang acoustic treatment on the wall in your recording space. I don't recommend buying the Auralex foam or anything like that. It tends to be more expensive than it's worth at any price level that normal humans can afford. So the ultra high-end stuff, definitely worth it, but do you really want to spend $4,000 treating a 10-foot by 10-foot area? I don't think so. I'll put a link in the description for some DIY acoustic treatment, but basically treating the room you're in for reflections will make the sound cleaner in the mic. It won't sound as echoey. It won't sound as big and boomy. So that's number two. Number three is electrons and radio interference. So if you're recording with anything wirelessly, especially, having your cell phone near your recording device, whether it's a computer or a Zoom H6 or whatever, that can create some radio interference that sounds like dit, 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 dit. So if you're hearing that, put your cell phone in another room. Because it's basically the electronics in your recording device and the wires in your microphone cables are picking up that interference, those radio signals, just like a guitar pickup picks up the vibration of the strings. On that note, Another really common source of hum and buzzing in your audio is going to be if you have a microphone cable running parallel to a power cable. Because of a whole bunch of reasons, the microphone cable actually picks up the cycling of the power through the cable, and that gets recorded along with everything else. And then when you put compression and limiting and EQ afterwards on your audio in order to bring it up to program volume, it's going to amplify all of that stuff too, and it's going to make it sound like garbage. So make sure that none of your mic cables are running parallel to any of your power cables, and if you're getting that weird like digital distortion, put your cell phone somewhere else. Put it in airplane mode. That can help. So those are the three sort of main areas that you should pay attention to when it comes to background noise, or basically anything getting into your microphone that isn't your sweet voice, right? The fans and hiss and hum can basically always be controlled unless it's self noise, unless it's created by cheap equipment, but there's nothing you can do about that except buy more equipment, and money is money. So don't worry about it. If you've done all this stuff and there's still a low hiss or hum, that's the world you live in. But if you pay attention to those three things, you can get a cleaner recording environment. And then when you do the next step that we're going to talk about, you'll end up with a much more satisfying sound. So once you've got your recording environment sort of set, the next thing you want to pay attention to is sound quality, right? Not all microphones are created equal. Now, this doesn't mean you've got to go spend $500 on an RE20 or something in order to get clean sound. But I can tell you that there is going to be an extreme difference between recording through like a Blue Yeti USB mic even, and a $20 microphone that doesn't operate that way. So I guess one of the first things I want to caution you against is using all-in-one solutions. A USB microphone is not just a microphone. It's a microphone, it's an analog to digital converter, and it's a mini single-purpose audio interface, all in one. And basically all of those things suffer. I have never liked the sound of USB microphones. That doesn't mean there aren't good sounding USB microphones out there, but I think if you're going to spend the money on equipment, you should spend money on equipment that will let you upgrade in pieces your entire setup so that you can always be improving whenever you get a little bit of extra money to spend on your hobby, right? So I would caution you against getting USB microphones and instead get something like this. This is a Behringer Ultra Voice XM8500. Behringer is sort of, they're getting better, but they're notorious in audio circles for making cheap gear that doesn't work that well. Except the thing is, over the years, it still stayed cheap, but it's getting better and better. Now, I wouldn't choose to use this microphone over the other microphones I have, but also I do this for a living. I've got a lot of microphones. That's not a luxury afforded most people, and this microphone costs $20. This cable costs $8, and it ends in an 1/8-inch adapter that'll plug directly into your computer, which sometimes will work right out of the box. If it's too quiet when you do that, you can pick up an $8 adapter, and then you're good, and you've spent maybe $38 to get a sound that's better than a $100 USB microphone can get you. On top of that, you can upgrade your audio interface and still use the same microphone. You can upgrade the microphone and still use the same cable after you upgraded your audio interface. You don't have to change everything at once, and I think that's important. So that's basically, that's something else to pay attention to, is oftentimes the all-in-one solutions aren't going to get you the best sound quality. So you don't have to spend a ton of money on gear, but you do need the right tools for the job. I'll put some links in the description below to like my ultra budget suggestion for this sort of thing, but don't worry about it if not. And also at the end of the day, you have what you have. So if you pay attention to the noise stuff we mentioned earlier, you're still worlds above where a lot of people are going to be starting out. So you've already made improvements. And just the next thing to focus on once you've got the environment is your equipment. And you don't need to spend a lot of money to get the right equipment. That's my point. So the third thing that we want to pay attention to is technique. So we've got environment laid down. We've got equipment at a level that functions. The next thing we pay attention to is technique. And it's pretty simple. It means if you're recording alone, you want to get, 8 to 12 inches away from your microphone. You don't want to be much closer than that because it'll start to sound really boomy, right? And you don't want to be too far away because then it starts to sound like you're out in the middle of the field and also you're out of focus on your camera. I mean, that's basically it, right? And then there's also an element of technique that applies to the recording process itself. Don't record with your gain knob too high. You don't want it, when you're recording, you don't want it peaking at -2 or -5 because you need what's called headroom. You need room to bring that up later in order to get the cleanest, most professional sounding result that you can. So record with it peaking at -12 on the meters, and you'll have plenty of headroom, plenty of space between the loudest peak and the theoretical the physical maximum or the digital maximum of how loud that sound can possibly get. So that's it, right? You want to work in a hierarchy. Don't worry about spending money first. Worry about finding a clean recording environment because the best mic in the world won't capture good sounding audio if you're recording in a room that doesn't sound good. So clean up your environment first. Find a way to turn off the fans, find a way to beat the early reflections into submission, and find a way to run your cables so that they don't pick up interference. The next thing after that is get at least the minimum quality equipment that you need. And like I said, this cheap $20 microphone, in my opinion, this sounds better than any of the USB microphones I've heard. It requires different pieces of equipment in order to work, but I think that's the benefit because then you can upgrade one thing at a time. And I'll probably do a video on that at some point. If I did, there's a link in the description. If I haven't done it yet, then there won't be a link in the description. So check for that. And lastly, after that, it's technique. Make sure you're close enough to your microphone. If you're recording with multiple people in the room, try to get them as far away from each other as possible in order to reduce bleed. And then one more tiny little tip is, especially if you don't have a lot of money, and especially if you're just recording in living rooms or offices and not a purpose-built recording studio, don't use condenser microphones. Dynamic microphones, for reasons I'll get into in another video, are a lot easier to deal with in sort of improvisational recording environments. And I'm including in that my purpose-treated office in my apartment. I would rather record in here with a dynamic microphone than a condenser for a whole host of reasons. But at the end of the day, it's a little bit less to worry about, and it's not as sensitive to the background noises that you may or may not have control over in your space. So hope all that was helpful. If you have further questions about recording cleanly or making program level audio output for your content, drop them in the comments below. Throw me a like, subscribe, hit the little bell so you learn about new videos when I put them up on whatever schedule I put them up on. But really the most entertaining thing you can do for yourself and me is to ask me questions, because I'm always looking for inspiration for new videos. I hope to cover as many questions as possible. And yeah, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.